Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this little bit of Aramaic on the weekend. And we're continuing in our unpacking of Matthew chapter 7, verse 7. And I hope you enjoyed the first portion of it. And now we'll go into this next little portion of Seek and ye shall find. And just to review how the Aramaic may have sounded, starting from the beginning of the ask of the shalv. It's a Sheen Aleph Lamed, and then the Vav and the Lamed kind of run together. And then Vene Tihav would be given unto you, and then Lechun would be to you, excuse me, given and then unto you is the Lechun. And then our portion today begins with the Ba'av V'tesh Kechun. So a little challenging to say V'tesh Kechun, two very similar sounds of the hard kuf, and then the het being more of a guttural sound. So, and that is the part that we're going to look at today, which is, I'll just kind of highlight it here, these two words, the Ba'av Techun. So as we unpack this, something startled me, and so I want to share that with you, something I didn't expect to find. Um, what I was reminded of, though, is I'm studying this verse, but then reading the verses that follow, trying to get the context of it. That's the important thing when we study um, in this way. We don't want to get hung up explicitly on one word and its meaning. We're looking at the relational side of it. We're looking for the heart of God and what the emotional side is. And so we want to get the whole context. And of course, when you continue to read and the verses coming up, you will get just a beautiful word picture, a beautiful understanding of, at least to me, it meant a father with his children. And it made me go back to how I felt when my children were young and how I interacted with them and understanding their limited growth, when they were young and they're less than 10 years of age, and how they interacted with me and the joy it was to be their father and to have them as for children. And when they would come to be with me when I come home from work, and the joy we'd have of just that reunion, and trying to think of, that's the feeling I got as I read through these verses, and thinking, okay, I enjoyed the relationship with them. I enjoyed the time with them. It wasn't about them wanting stuff, as we kind of learned from the verse from last week, portion of the verse. It wasn't about them wanting things. It was about them enjoying my presence, and I enjoying their presence and being with them. And that's how I summarize this whole portion that we're going through of this relationship of God enjoying the communication, enjoying our presence, but then also of we enjoying his presence. And of course, the viewpoints are very different, just as it was with myself as an adult father having younger children. Our concept of what was happening was very different because of our maturity levels, because of our status in life. And I think that gives us, at least for me, an insight into this verse in a little bit deeper way. So as I'm going through this, that's the lens, that's the investigative microscope or um, magnifying glass that I'm looking at as I'm going through these words, looking for that type of relationship. So as we look at these next words, the word for seek, require, question, inquire, intro, or into is the bait, the ayin, and the aleph. So there's a number of weak letters in here, which play into the breakdown of these words, and not to get too grammatical right now, but just so that we can understand there are strong letters and then there are weak letters. And so the ayin and the aleph are weak, and the bait is somewhat of a guttural sound, so it has its own nuances to it also. The more morphological information. They're saying this is in the second masculine plural, so that is kind of like the they, the you type of uh, thought uh, idea as we go through it. And then it's in an imperative, so it's not like it's a command form, but it's somewhat of a, this is something that should be done. And so with that idea, let's go and unpack this word for to seek. And so looking at the Jastro's Targumim, I look up the bait, the ayin, and the vav, and I don't come up with the word for seek, at least not in the meaning that it was used in all of the Targumic or all of the Jewish literature. And again, to me, that's the beauty of looking through um, the Targums, which are the kind of like the preaching, the teaching, the understanding that the Jewish culture, Jewish people had at the time when Jesus was on this earth. And so other type of lexicons will maybe give you different viewpoints, but I'm in my search here looking for this understanding of this time frame. And so when I look up this word, it specifically says that it is for prayer. So um, again, no stretch of the imagination to bring together the thoughts of seeking and of prayer, but yet is that seeking in prayer the way it was intended to be understood? It's definitely the way we have assigned an English translation of seek, because again, looking at what we looked at last week of asking, um, the English translation leads us to think that this is all about stuff. This is about acquiring. This is about gathering. It's about selfishness of coming and getting things, acquiring things for ourselves. And as we found last week, the meanings can be quite different. It can be more of a relationship type meaning. And that's what I see coming out here in this word, rather than seek, it's a word for prayer. And prayer is communication with God. And to me, that fits in the whole realm of the context of this portion of the chapter. Is this is a relationship, and we build our relationship with God through prayer. Coincidentally, looking above the word prayer here, just a couple of entries, we come up with the letters of the bait, the ayin, a bait, and an ayin. And its meaning is to knock at the door, to ask entrance. And of course, next week, next time we get together, we're going to look at this next portion of the verse, which we all know is about knocking. But we're going to find out is that word used for knocking is not this word that we're looking at here in this lexicon, because it's a different word. So um, I find that really strange. Why didn't they use this word? Then the other thing I noticed too is the pronunciation of this word, this bav. If you look at the pronunciation of the word just above it for knock, ask, entrance, it is pronounced almost the same way. The ba, the a sound under the b sound, and then the ayin is silent, and then you have another b sound and an ayin is silent, and the sound for the above and the bait can be the same. So the dagish that's put in here for the hardening sound, okay, yes, that's put in by the uh, guys who were doing the translating. But if you didn't have any of the vowel pointings, you wouldn't know if it's pronounced with a hard B sound or a softer V sound. So the pronunciation could almost be the same. And I find that very, very interesting as we continue to go through this. So hang on to that word for prayer. We're going to go back to the next portion of this word here. And as we continue the unpacking, we go to the word that means to find. And of course, there's a has the vav in the front here, which is the conjunction to and you will find. And then it has the tet, which lets us know it's an imperfect state. And then there would be the sheen, kaf, um, and then the het underneath. And then the hoon sound at the end means it's a masculine plural, the same way the word above us was a masculine plural. And it's in the imperfect, which means it's not a completed action. It's something that's going to be coming and be a result of what's going on here. So let's go and unpack this word here with Mergus Jastrows, because what does it mean? We're in this realm of praying. And let's see, as we look for this Sheen Kaf, we find that it stands for actually two different meanings. You can see them as we look across the word here, the Sheen, Kaf, and Het. One of them, it does mean to find, so the translation does make sense. But another meaning very similar, which is different vowel pointings, is to forget or to discard. um, it means to uncover. So think about what's happening in this realm that Jesus is admonishing, that when we are coming to God, we're in prayer. Prayer can help us do two things. It can help us discover and find things that are hidden, find meanings that are difficult for us to understand, but it can also help us to forget and to discard those things which are plaguing us. It somewhat comes in that you are being delivered, you are being strengthened, the problems that you are going through, the things that are weighing you down are forgotten. Just the same way that, when my children would come home and greet me and we would have our time of reunion, the things that happened previously when I was at work, the problems were forgotten. Their little problems were forgotten. The joy of being together and of sharing and of interacting and the love that we felt made all these other things just be discarded, be forgotten. And I believe that's another meaning we can look at here in this little portion of the verse, that when we are in God's presence, we are feeling him. And again, prayer can mean different things to different people, but unless prayer is a two-way communication, I don't think it's accomplishing everything that God had intended. So when I look at this word of seek, but really being prayer, it is when there is communication and a connection made to where your heart is connected with God's heart. And yes, you are communicating to him, but he's also communicating to you. You feel that two-way communication. And it's in that depth of relationship. It's in that depth when you're in this realm of communication with God that uh, you're hearing and you're speaking. And so this is going back and forth. And it's when you're in that beautiful realm that the things of this world are forgotten, your problems are forgotten, you are raised above them, you feel that everything's going to be all right, that you're in his hands, you're in his care, you're in his arms, and you've discovered that realm of being in the presence of God to where nothing else matters. And I hope you enjoyed this little topic of discovery here as we continue to go through and unpack this beautiful, beautiful verse. And you can see where the language study allows us to go just deeper into a realm that we might not have gathered from just the English translation. So God bless you all. Pray you have a wonderful week and look forward to seeing you next time. Bye bye.